Well, hello, dear viewer. Today is the first in the annals of Rev Chat. First of all, we welcome back from her sabbatical time, a time of extended study, lying down, swimming in the sea, Reverend Neary. She looks so refreshed, doesn't she? Younger by the day, if you don't mind me saying. And of course, we couldn't just sack Reverend Chris Grask because he would have probably fined us and we'd have had a big bill. So Chris, it's lovely to see you. It's lovely to see you as well today.
Don't worry,
and next week
going to arrive as well.
Yeah, and next week I'm on holiday, so you could get Chris and Joe together. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing?
Well, Chris might be on holiday.
No, I'm
sorry,
on holiday next week.
Chris is not allowed to be on holiday. No, he's not allowed to be. And so it'll be the first Rev Chat that I've actually been missing from. So that'd be great, won't it? Good refresher. The problem, of course, is I may not get back in again because the viewing figures probably will go up. So it's good. And today, I don't know what we're going to be talking about because it's just another Sunday, isn't it? Well, we are back at church, though, aren't we? It was good to be back in church last week for Palm Sunday in some of our churches. Are you back in your churches on Sunday, Chris?
This weekend, yes, starting Good Friday.
Good.
That'll be the first. We weren't in for Palm Sunday. So all the
but I did see your
come back. We'll be there.
Yeah, I did see your service though. I enjoyed watching it as ever. It was good.
Yeah, people like it now. The bishops are preaching instead of me.
Ooh.
Yeah, we have to
because they've got a better internet connection. More
I think they're better because they've got a bigger library to draw on for their words. That's the problem.
There we go.
They could be better. They could be better because they haven't spent the last year making endless online worship.
Yeah.
Well, could be. Although I think a number of them have been taking part in online worship, but there we are. I'm not going to criticise our bishops because I need my job for the next 4 and a bit years at least. So there we are.
I think it's been very good having bishop sermons actually because it helps people get to know their bishop.
We did discuss this in the very first or second of the Chris and David Rev Chat episodes, because your wife discovered that you hadn't had to prepare a sermon because you'd used the bishop, so she made you decorate the hall. Do you remember?
I think that sounds about right. Yes.
That's quite a harsh punishment.
We had this very discussion. Your wife had found out that you were slacking and had got you decorating. I remember this very well. So I'm not admitting to using anything from anybody else because there's a lot of decorating needed here in the rectory. So there we are. Anyway, you're going to read
sabbatical.
Say that again, Chris.
I said we've got 3 months sabbatical. Reverend Joe's been on worship every week. This
is very true. Somebody made me giggle. I was back in church on Sunday and somebody walked up the path and she said, oh, lovely to see you back. She said, it took me a long time to realise that it was the same recordings each week on the online version. So I'm not sure people realise I've been away. So I'm already...
Which is why... Yeah, which is why I don't think anybody realised why I suddenly started appearing and saying hello and this is who's taking part in the service type of thing. They just thought he was all part of the usual weekly recording, I think. But there we are. Right, Christopher.
But as it was so nice of you to shut the churches while I was away, it made it easier.
Well, the problem was we just could not cope without you, and we were in mourning so much that having taken advice from my colleagues in the deanery, they felt that I should, out of sympathy, close all the churches, didn't they, Chris?
Yeah.
Well, very much appreciated.
Yeah. They're all going to throw their doors wide open now the Reverend Neary's back.
That's right. That's right.
There we are.
So there we are. Anyway, Easter Sunday. I'm sure most people will know the story of Easter Sunday, but you're going to read today from us from a gospel that Joe said a few moments ago before we came on recording, that we don't tend to use the Mark version of the Easter Gospel very often, and you're going to read from it, aren't you?
I will, but I'm guessing we're going to have
We're going to have our pause. We're going to have our pause. You're quite right, Chris. Let's have our pause. All three of us pause together.
Yes, we're going to look at Mark's Gospel reading for Easter. So it's Mark chapter 16. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, and Salome bought spices so that they might go and anoint him. And very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. They had been saying to one another, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance to the tomb?" When they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had already been rolled back. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. But he said to them, "Do not be alarmed. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has been raised. He is not here. Look, there is the place they laid him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter that he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you." So they went out and fled from the tomb, for terror and amazement had seized them. And they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid.
So, what jumps out at you in that story that is different, perhaps to John's Gospel or to the Luke version?
Well, if we just look at that as the end of Mark, we end with "they were afraid."
Mm-hmm. Jo, anything to throw into that too?
Yeah, I mean, the same as Chris, that it's as we were talking again before we started recording, that actually there is no resurrection appearance if we take that as the end of Mark. I mean, if you look in your Bible, there is an alternative longer version where Jesus does make a reappearance. So it leaves the resurrection very much on faith, doesn't it? That it has happened. The angel, who we assume that young man is an angel, I guess, has told them that he is risen and will go ahead of them in Galilee. But if that's the only evidence you have, if you're only working off Mark's Gospel, you're left a little bit hanging. Also, and you would expect me to say this, the Gospel writer silences the women, which I think is quite interesting, because the women are the first witnesses to the resurrection in all the Gospel accounts, sometimes on their own or sometimes with a man alongside them to verify it. But in this Gospel account, the writer of the Gospel chooses to silence the women because they were afraid. And that's an interesting thing, because if we are silenced and don't talk about the resurrection, then we're left without the good news. Because if the resurrection is not communicated, then in theory we're kind of left at Good Friday and we're left hanging a bit. So.
Thank you, dear viewer. You will notice that women aren't silenced in this Rev chat, so that's good. And I think it's an interesting point that you make. And of course, the other Gospel writers, they would have used Mark as their source, wouldn't they? So it's interesting that they've slightly looked at it differently and told the story in a way that. Perhaps what I'm trying to say, perhaps we get too used to using John so often, don't we? Where, of course, I've seen the Lord is proclaimed by Mary and as the wonderful words, we don't know what Mark was thinking, and you're right. If you do look at the extended end, it's a known fact. I think most theologians would accept that was added much later to try and round the story up, like some of the others. Yeah, it's interesting. I've always, whilst I do like the John version, I also like the Luke version of the resurrection story, particularly when the statement is made, "Why are you looking for the living amongst the dead?" There's something very special for me about that statement on Easter Day. Chris, any more thoughts, ideas?
Well, I was just having a look at Luke's account. Because we think often that Mark was influenced by Peter. Luke says when the women come back and tell them that Jesus is risen, it just says these words seemed to them an idle tale and they did not believe them. But Peter got up and ran to the tomb to have a look. So they went from disbelief. But actually, maybe there's something in this. Maybe they're right. I'm going to go and investigate. And Peter, we always regard Peter as the impetuous one who just acts first and thinks later. He actually got up and decided that rather than just dismiss it, he was going to go and have a look for himself. And that actually could be our big challenge for people this Easter. Is you hear the three of us standing in pulpits every year. Rather than forming your opinion, get up, read your Bibles, investigate for yourself. Hey, maybe I've just written my Easter sermon.
I think you could. I just think you could play them the whole of Rev Chat. That would solve the problem, wouldn't it, Chris?
It would. I'll just go and put my laptop in, say this is what we've been doing for the last 4 months anyway.
Yeah.
I think you've got a really good point, Chris, that actually to sit and read all the 4 different resurrection accounts side by side, to ponder the differences and the similarities. I think there are very few things that happen in Jesus's life that are recorded in all 4 Gospels. I think I may have the numbers wrong, but something like 10 events are only covered in all 4 Gospels. So the resurrection is one of those events, which I guess is pointing to some kind of evidence as well. And yes, to make up our own minds and discover. And then I think I would take it one step further to then think, what will you then say about it? What will you then speak about as a result? We don't have to, I guess, run out and find people to tell, because the resurrection of Jesus is well recorded and happened a long time ago, so we believe it's happened. But I guess for us as Christians, what does the resurrection mean for us now? And what would we want to talk to people about? Because I guess for me, this year is very much about resurrection being something about new life and new hope in a place where we find ourselves as a world. I think that resurrection hope is probably needed as much this year as any other.
Yeah, I think I'd contest slightly about getting up and declaring it because we know it, because I think we do need more than ever to proclaim the fact that Jesus Christ is risen, perhaps more than we've done in years. But I think you're right. We very rarely. I don't think I've ever used Matthew's account ever on Easter Day. I can't honestly say I have. I've used John plenty of times, and over the last few years, I've certainly used Luke a few times, and I've used Mark in the past. I can't honestly say I've read Matthew's account, which is interesting. Perhaps we need to, and I think you're right. Perhaps we do need to look side by side. And Chris, I think you set us all our sermon challenge for Easter, one of the Sundays this year. So thank you for that. It's such a glorious day, Easter Day. But as we were saying partly last week, Chris, and Harry picked up, didn't he, in the heading about, we talked about Holy Week and Easter. you know, whilst we're looking forward to the great day of Easter, to actually be able to celebrate that, you've got to go through what Holy Week shares with us, and particularly the horrors of Good Friday. Because without Good Friday, you can't have the joy of Easter. And I think we tackled that a little bit last week, but perhaps not fully. Any other comments or thoughts on that?
I think for a lot of people, Good Friday is kind of where we've been stuck for the last year. Mm-hmm. Because Good Friday is about suffering, about potentially feeling the lack of love and support, that cry from the cross of feeling forsaken, about the witnesses standing by and sharing, for some sharing in the suffering, but others being very disconnected from that. And I guess for me, that stands a little bit as a metaphor for some of what the world has experienced and people have experienced in the last year and a bit. And it's, yeah, we don't want to get stuck there, because it's not the end of the story. But you have to pass through it. And maybe sometimes we want to rush through it because it's too hard to look on that suffering. We want to turn our face away because it's too difficult.
Chris, any comments or thoughts?
Oh yeah, I was just thinking as Joe was talking then, like she said, this last year has been a tough year. There's been a lot of death, not just in this country, but around the world. And for every death, if you say there's 20 people grieving, the grief around the world is huge. And even just for us in the UK, our lockdown has been hard for the last 3 months, where we've all been told to stay at home. We've all been told to avoid physical contact with other human beings, which to me is the antithesis of the way God made us, when he made us to love one another. And yes, as many of us have been vaccinated, lockdown's ended yesterday. We were actually allowed out again, and we've got these steps back to full integration of society again, which we hope will be able to go ahead as planned and not be further hindered. That in a way, with this vaccine, we've got that sense of hope. You know, we've been through 12 months of Good Friday. We've got this sense of hope of Easter Sunday. You know, it's only Friday, but Sunday's coming is one of the video clips I play sometimes on Good Friday at the end. You know, it's why we have, as Protestants, we always have an empty cross rather than a cross with Jesus on it. But sometimes you need the cross with Jesus on it. It's serious business, this Easter thing. It's not just it's not a light-hearted let's celebration and eat lots of chocolate. It's, you know, the Good Friday is a serious time, and I think the first Good Friday here was probably the coldest I've ever been, because the heating wasn't working in church and it was freezing. You know, but you're there for 3 hours meditating on the 3 hours that Jesus was on the cross is tough.
And that's, I think the one thing we tend to pass by so easily as well is that Saturday between the two. And one of our esteemed colleague, David Sherlock, former Dean of Truro Cathedral, he's always said that we miss the importance of Easter Eve and what it means in the story, if we're not careful. The fact that Jesus was, well, where was he? According to which readings and passages you understand. But that waiting, that agony of what's going to happen. Have we been fooled? Will Easter Day bring all that we expect it to bring? I think we have to, for me, Easter Saturday is very important. Easter Eve is a very important day as well. So, Easter Day will come, as you say. But first, we've got to go through Good Friday and Easter Eve. And dear viewers, we do wish you all a very happy Easter. And as Chris has just said, it's more than Easter bunnies and chocolate. Do spend time reading the various gospel passages for Easter Day. And hopefully that'll bring new and fresh insight into what Easter is all about. So thank you all for watching and for being here. Thank you to Jo. It's good to see her back. Thank you to Chris again. And perhaps you two can get together without me next week and hold the fort, as you always will do. No,
hard to imagine that, really, Rev chat without you.
I know. It's
we'll try. We'll try to rise to the occasion.
Does this mean I've got to try and be the old grumpy one?
You can.
You won't have any problems there, Chris. Now, the trust that I'm putting in you two, of course, is untold. You do know this, so I don't want to put any pressure on you for performance next week. But thank you, dear viewer, for watching. It's been great again, and thank you to the people of Colmers and all those other places like Powerstock and all the rest of it, loaders.
You can get your Benefice Team name right next time, Chris, can't you?
After 3 months of doing this and being rural dean, he doesn't
Still
even know
can't
the name
remember.
of the Benefice, let alone the name of all the parishes.
That place with all the trees on top of it and the arts centre and the beautiful, beautiful village which no one can ever find of Porton. Thank you very much for loaning Chris to us again. We hope you're going to continue to loan him to us, because we'd miss him if he wasn't around. So thank you all very much. Have a great Easter, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Easter. Bye.
Happy Easter.